Hey, what's going on, guys? This Saturday is UFC 298, Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria, and this is going to be my full card predictions. I'm going to go through every single fight on the card and give you a quick breakdown and prediction. This card is incredibly stacked. I cannot wait for UFC 298. I'll be doing a live stream watch-along for the full card on Saturday night, so if you care to join me, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Starting off with the first fight of the night, we have Andrea versus Miranda Maverick. Super low-level women's MMA, which is always tough to pick. But you have Andrea on a 3-fight losing streak, 35 years old. And honestly, I think her losing streak is a bit deceptive because she has fought decent opposition. Natalia Silva, who's a legit contender. Macy Barber, where she got brutally robbed against Macy Barber. She should have won that fight. And then Viviana Araujo. So she's fought really good level of competition. And that's where it makes this fight very hard to pick. You have Miranda Maverick, who's coming off a win against Priscilla Cachoeira, who's an absolute bum who has power. She got a submission win there. Then the fight before that lost to Jasmine Jadavicius, who also is kind of bottom of the barrel women's MMA. But when I look at this matchup, I just see Miranda Maverick, 26 years old to 35 years old. And I think the striking's kind of even. I think Miranda Maverick's probably a little bit better with the grappling. And also, Andrea literally has no fight IQ. She was getting tagged up on the feet against Natalia Silva, never even shot a takedown. Just continued to stand with her and get tagged up on the feet and just brutalized on the feet. So I don't trust her fight IQ. I think she's getting older. She's slowing down. Her confidence is going to be, horrible coming in on a 3-fight losing streak. And I think Miranda Maverick's only getting better. She's younger. She's improving fight to fight. I think their striking's close to even, and I think Miranda Maverick has a bit of a grappling advantage in this fight. I don't think it's going to be like crazy. I don't think she's going to blow her out of the water. But also, I am worried. Andrea does have a decent reach and height advantage in this fight. 3-inch height advantage, 4-inch reach advantage. But I think Miranda Maverick gets it done. I'm going to go Miranda Maverick. I'm going to say 29-28 decision. I think it's going to be one of those close fights where, maybe, she got a little bit of control time, which stole this round. But I'm going Miranda Maverick. I have to go with the younger fighter in this one. So I'm going to go her 29-28 for Miranda Maverick. Moving up on the card, we have Val Woodburn versus Oban Elliott. Val Woodburn made his UFC debut on short notice against Bo Nickel, got brutally chinned. He was undefeated before then, but kind of low level of competition. I mean, the guy he fought before this, 30-16. Fight before that, 17-8. Fight before that, 3-1. So it's literally 4 fights ago, he's fighting a guy who's 3-1. Bo Nickel doesn't have that much experience, but that's a bit of a different animal. Then you have Oban Elliott coming off of Dana White's Contender Series where he got a majority decision. And honestly, I think Val Woodburn is one of those guys that probably should be fighting at the Kentucky State Fair. Nasty power, super reckless, but just not all that skilled. And I know we didn't get to see a lot from him against Bo Nickel, but I think Oban Elliott has decent striking, more technical in the feet, and also has good grappling as well. And I don't trust Val Woodburn's grappling. So I'm going to go Oban Elliott. I think he's going to win this fight 30-27. I just think Val Woodburn, outside of finding some nuclear punch where he just drops him and finishes him in the first round, I think he's going to lose this fight. I just think he's outskilled here. And I don't think Elliott's some crazy elite fighter. I just think Val Woodburn, inexperienced overall, and just even some of these other fights I watched outside the organization, he never looked particularly impressive. He just kind of swings wild and hopes to find a KO shot. So I'm going to go Oban Elliott via decision. I'm going to say he gets it done 30-27 decision. Moving up on the card, we have Josh Quinlan versus Danny Barlow. Josh Quinlan had a really nasty win on Dana White's Contender Series, but it was overturned because he tested positive for steroids. Then came in, got a win against Jason Witt, which isn't that great of a win, and then he lost to Trey Waters in his last fight. And you have Danny Barlow, 7-0, undefeated, coming off of Dana White's Contender Series. Got a nasty KO there. And, I think this fight, in a way, kind of mimics the Trey Waters fight because Trey Waters had a significant reach advantage on Quinlan and just outstruck him from range. And Danny Barlow has an 8-inch reach advantage, 2-inch height advantage. And I think Barlow's going to find his chin. I think Quinlan's going to look to grapple, look to chop the legs of Barlow, look to get in close and land big shots. And I don't think he's going to have a lot of success. I think Barlow is going to be able to keep the distance. I think he's going to move. I think he's going to use that, nasty left hand that he has. And I think he's going to be touching the chin of Quinlan. And I just think the reach advantage is going to be too much for Quinlan to close the distance. I think he's going to get touched up early, but I think Barlow's going to be a little bit worried potentially about the takedown, a little bit worried about the power from Quinlan coming back. So he's not going to be ultra aggressive. But I think as the fight goes on, I think Quinlan's going to get frustrated with the range, not being able to find any shots. I think he's going to start rushing in the second round. I'm going to go Danny Barlow, second round KO. He's going to catch Quinlan with a nasty left hand as he rushes in, put him down, finish him off with ground and pound. Moving up on the card, we have Mingyang Zhang versus Brendson Ribeiro. This is a 50-50 fight. I was watching both these guys. I was kind of, watching a bunch of their fights, and it's just, they're very similar, honestly. Super aggressive power strikers is basically kind of describes both of them. I think Ribeiro has a little bit more power. I think Zhang is a little bit more technical, but they're both super hittable. They're both very aggressive. And it's a matter of who finds the kill shot first. Ribeiro's on a 3-fight winning streak, coming off of Dana White's Contender Series. Not that long ago, he's losing to not that great level of opposition, not that horrible though, like 2 years ago basically. And you have Zhang, who's on at least a 5-fight winning streak right now. I don't remember how long his winning streak is he's on, but both guys are finishers. Both guys are finishers. Zhang, 16 wins, 16 finishes. Ribeiro, 15 wins, 15 finishes. This is definitely going to end in a finish. And I think Ribeiro has more power. So I'm going to go Ribeiro. I'm going to say first round KO. I think both guys maybe even get hurt in the first round. I think it's going to be a crazy fight while it lasts. But I think Zhang's a little bit more willing to come forward and take a shot to land a shot. And I think it's going to cost him in this fight. I think Ribeiro is going to catch him, just absolutely brutally sleep him as he's coming in, and just catches him with a nasty shot and just absolutely sleeps him. But I think this is a fight that could go either way. But I believe no matter who wins, even if it's Zhang, even if it's Ribeiro, I think it's a first-round KO for whoever wins this fight. But I'm going Ribeiro first-round KO. Moving up on the card, we have Rinya Nakamura versus Carlos Vera. This is not a tough fight to pick at all. I'm going Rinya Nakamura. I think he could potentially find a submission, but I think he's just going to out-grapple him. Carlos Vera is kind of durable. He's kind of gritty. He's coming in on short notice in this fight. I forgot who originally he was supposed to fight, who Rinya Nakamura was supposed to fight in this fight. But either way, Nakamura undefeated 8-0, coming off a win over Fernie Garcia. Obviously not the best win there. Then one on road to the UFC, obviously. And you have Carlos Vera coming off of the Ultimate Fighter, where he fought Brad Katona at one point, where he basically got out-grappled in that fight. Had some decent scrambles. And he's not like a total bum, but I think Nakamura is going to take him down, beat him up, get him in the north-south position like he did to Fernie Garcia in his last fight. And I just see Nakamura, being able to out-grapple him in this fight. And even on the feet, Nakamura is sloppy, but he has power in his hands. He has finishing ability. And Carlos Vera, he wants to strike, but he's not like, I think he has a striking advantage, but I think the threat of the takedown plus the power coming back from Nakamura, I just think it's too much of a disadvantage. Plus, he's coming in on short notice. Plus, you look at their ages, 28 for Nakamura, 36 for Vera. So, not good at all. They're similar reach, similar height. So you have a massive age disadvantage. I think there's a massive grappling deficiency for Vera compared to Nakamura. And I think Nakamura has power to put him away if he rushes in. So I'm going to go Nakamura. I'm going to say decision. I'm going to say he out-grapples him the entire fight. So I'm going to go Nakamura 30-27 decision. Moving up on the card. This card is so good. I mean, these are really solid prelims. We have Marcos Rogério de Lima versus Justin Tafa. De Lima coming off that nasty first-round KO, like first-minute KO against Derek Lewis. Before that, he beat Waldo Cortez Acosta and Andrea Arlovski. You have Justin Tafa coming off that KO against Austin Lane. Before that, the eye poke. Before that, a KO of Parker Porter. Before that, a KO of Harry Unsucker. This is like, can De Lima get the grappling going before he gets KO'd by Justin Tafa? De Lima has decent leg kicks on the feet, but I don't know if he even has that good of leg kicks. I mean, I don't know if it was just Waldo Cortez Acosta's inability to check any leg kicks. But there's no secret. De Lima wants to grapple. Justin Tafa wants to keep it on the feet. Justin Tafa doesn't have the best cardio, but neither does De Lima, so there's not really an advantage there. And Justin Tafa has decent takedown defense. So, I really think Justin Tafa finds a kill shot in this fight. So I'm going to go Justin Tafa first round KO. There is a loss on his resume. I think it's against Jarrett Vandera. You have a loss against Jarrett Vandera for Justin Tafa, which makes me kind of have pause, but that was 3 years ago. I think Tafa has improved since then. He's a bit of a family dollar version of Mark Hunt, but I think Marcos Rogério de Lima gets clipped with shots. He does have a high guard, but Justin Tafa throws nasty power. I mean, even against Austin Lane, who's super athletic, has good movement, super lanky and tall, he found the kill shot there. So I think he finds a kill shot against Marcos Rogério de Lima. I think he puts him away in the first round. So I'm going Justin Tafa, first round KO. Moving up on the card, the featured prelim, we have Amanda Lemos versus Mackenzie Dern. Before I watch any fight tape, because for every single one of these fights, I at least watch one fight from each fighter. Most of the time I watch a couple fights, but it depends on, what fight it is. But before I even watch any fight tape on this, because it's weird how, and I don't want to go on a diatribe, but it's weird how sometimes you remember a fight in your head. You go back and watch the fight, it's totally different than what you remember. And before I even watched any fight tape, I was definitely going Amanda Lemos. Mackenzie Dern stepping in on short notice, coming off a KO loss to Jessica Andrade, who just shows up for paychecks. Amanda Lemos coming off a loss to Weili Zhang. I almost said Mackenzie Dern. To Weili Zhang, where she got out-grappled. And, she had a decent showing, had some submission attempts, landed some shots on the feet. I think she even won a round later in the round. I think 4th or 5th round. I'm not sure. But I thought for sure I'm going Amanda Lemos via KO. Has nasty power on the feet, super, fast hands, and one of the few that have power. But then I went back and watched the Jessica Andrade fight. And it's not what you remember. I remember Jessica Andrade just bludgeoned her. Mackenzie Dern was winning on the feet in the first round, was going to win the first round with her hands. But she got dropped in the last 10 seconds. She had a takedown where she wasn't able to maintain control, where Jessica Andrade rushed in. She had like a hip toss and control time, and then outstruck her. Then in the second round, she was outstriking her too. She got clipped, she got hurt badly, never recovered, and then got finished. So Mackenzie Dern, I do understand that she rushes in, she has her chin in the air, and she does like the brawl. It's almost like she's got a chip on her shoulder and she's trying to prove a point. But Amanda Lemos has nasty power coming back, but she overextends a lot. And the way Mackenzie Dern gets takedowns, she doesn't have the best wrestling. She'll wait for you to overextend and then use like a toss or a trip to kind of take you down. And Lemos, she doesn't really throw a lot of straight punches. She throws these wild winging power shots. And I think Dern has good enough striking to kind of hang in there with her. I think she has a good chin. And I see her kind of, letting Lemos overextend, potentially grabbing her back, similar to what like Charles Oliveira did to Dustin Poirier. Or when she overextends, she's going to use her momentum to trip her and take her down, or hip toss her and take her down. And I know this sounds crazy, and this may be one of my worst picks of all time, because I know everyone's probably going with Amanda Lemos. It almost makes sense. But I think Dern is improving fight to fight. I just think, keeping her chin up in the air, kind of being a bit sloppy is what cost her against Jessica Andrade. I think she could have won a decision against Jessica Andrade purely striking with the threat of the takedown. I think Lemos doesn't have very good takedown defense to begin with. She's getting taken down. I understand it's against Weili Zhang. She's getting mauled. And I understand, has a KO win over Marina Rodriguez, a submission win over Michelle Waterson Gomez. Got submitted by Jessica Andrade. So they both lost to Jessica Andrade. I think Mackenzie Dern gets it done. I'm going to pick Mackenzie Dern to get this fight done. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm going to go Dern via first round submission. I'm going to go rear naked choke. I think basically Lemos is going to overextend, get taken down, give up her back, maybe even fall as Mackenzie Dern dodges a big overhand shot, take her back, submit her, get the hooks in, find the rear naked choke, and submit her. So I'm going Mackenzie Dern, first round submission. It may be one of my worst picks of all time, or I just may be crazy enough to get it right. But after rewatching that Jessica Andrade fight, I had to pick Mackenzie Dern. I don't like that she's on short notice, but I think her grappling edge, I think her striking is improving. I think she gets it done. Again, I'm worried about short notice, but I'm picking her to win. She's 30 years old, where Lemos is 36, so she's definitely on the decline. Either way, I'm going Mackenzie Dern, first round, rear naked choke. Moving up on the card, the first fight on the main card. This main card is absolutely stacked. We have Anthony Hernandez versus Roman Kopylov. This is a banger middleweight matchup. I cannot wait for this fight. Anthony Hernandez on a 4-fight winning streak, beat Edmund Shabazian ground and pound TKO last fight, submitted Marc-Andre Barrios fight before that, beat Josh Frem, and even submitted Rodolfo Vieira, which is looking better and better. You have Roman Kopylov coming off a win over Josh Frem, finished him, coming off a win over Claudio Ribeiro, coming off a win over Punu Soriano, and just finish after finish after finish. This is an amazing kind of up-and-coming, almost top 15 middleweights, and it's striker versus grappler matchup, and I absolutely am in love with this matchup. I believe this was originally supposed to be Anthony Hernandez versus Ikram Aliskerov, if I'm not mistaken. Roman Kopylov stepping in on somewhat short notice, I believe about a month's notice. This is a very tough fight to pick. Hernandez, super gritty, obviously wants to get you to the ground, wear you down, and look for a submission. Roman Kopylov wants to keep it on the feet. Nasty striking. Both guys, every single fight out, look improved. And honestly, it really comes down to the takedown defense of Roman Kopylov and how prepared he is for this fight, considering he took it on short notice. But I think he's able to stuff the takedowns. It's been a while since we've seen Kopylov just taken down and controlled. I know he was taken down a bit by Duraev. That was over 2 years ago. He's improved since then. And I know he's not been fighting like elite grapplers. He's kind of been fighting, decent matchups in terms of they're going to want to strike. But I think his footwork, his lateral movement, his striking, his kicks, I think he'll be able to keep Hernandez off him. And I think he'll be able to light Hernandez up on the feet. I think Hernandez will find some moments where he lands some shots and then mixes in the clinch and looks for a takedown. But I think Khabibulov is going to have good enough takedown defense where he stuffs the takedowns of Hernandez. I think if Hernandez gets him down, I would not want to be on the ground with Hernandez at all because Hernandez has some nasty submissions, submitted Rodolfo Vieira, which I already mentioned. But I think Roman Khabibulov is able to keep it on the feet. I think he'll batter the body, has a nasty body kick, has nasty head kicks. And I just think his technical striking ability, I think he's going to find some shots on the feet. Anthony Hernandez was eating some shots against Edmund Shabazian. And Shabazian, even early before he gassed, and Shabazian's always kind of had a stamina issue. Early, Shabazian was stuffing some takedowns. I think Khabibulov is going to have better takedown defense than Edmund Shabazian. I also think he's better on the feet, and I think he has better movement. I think Khabibulov does than Shabazian. So I'm going to go Roman Khabibulov. I think he gets it done second round TKO. I think Hernandez going to get aggressive. I think he's going to be kind of spamming the takedown, spamming the clinch. And I think Khabibulov is going to be beating him up to the body, leg kicking, pumping the jab, pumping teep kicks down the middle to keep distance. And I'm going to go second round TKO with a body kick from Roman Khabibulov. He loves that nasty body kick, and I think Hernandez leaves himself open, doesn't have the best striking. I think his striking is improving, but I think Roman Khabibulov is leaps and bounds better on the feet. So I think Khabibulov second round, midway through the second round, catches him with a nasty body kick, puts him down, maybe throws like 1 or 2 shots, follow up, and the referee steps in. Roman Khabibulov, second round TKO. Moving up on the card, this main card is incredible. Merab Dvalishvili versus Henry Cejudo. If Merab wins this fight, he better get a title shot. He absolutely better get a title shot. You know, he already deserves it. He kind of got robbed of his title shot. Coming off a win over Piotr Jan, where he just kind of shot it on takedowns, had Jan thinking about the takedowns, was landing on the feet, was actually chopping the leg of Piotr Jan as well. Meanwhile, you have Henry Cejudo coming off a loss against Aljamain Sterling, where it was a decent showing. There's even an argument that Henry Cejudo won that fight, but it just seemed like, you know, in that fight, it seemed like Aljo was just the more physical, you know, just physical in that fight and just was able to kind of take down Henry Cejudo a couple times. I know Cejudo had a couple takedowns as well, but really wasn't able to do anything with him. And then before that, he sat out. You know, he hadn't fought in 3 years, I think, you know, coming up to that fight. And it's not like he even shook off the ring rust and then came right back. It's now been almost 10 months since he fought Aljamain Sterling. So you look at Henry Cejudo's other wins. Dominic Cruz took that on short notice coming off a long layoff. Then the Marlon Moraes fight, he was losing and then, you know, came back and won once Marlon gassed. Fight before that against TJ Dillashaw was malnourished. So I think Henry Cejudo, he got a robbery win against Demetrius Johnson at flyweight. So I think Henry Cejudo has one of the most overrated resumes of all time. I know he's double champ, but I just think he's overrated. I picked him to beat Henry Cejudo. I picked him to beat Aljamain Sterling. But I just thought he would be able to keep it on the feet, and I thought he had the better striking because I had no respect for Aljamain Sterling striking. But Sterling was able to land when he was pressing forward. Good kicks to the body, good knees to the body as well. And I think Merab's better than Aljamain Sterling, especially with his pressure, with his pace, and with his physicality. And, you know, he's much younger than Henry Cejudo. Henry Cejudo is 37 years old. Merab's 33, so he's 4 years younger. Merab's arguably in his prime. Merab's much bigger. I think Merab's much stronger. And I know there's a lot of talk about the Olympic wrestling of Henry Cejudo. This isn't regular wrestling on a mat. This is MMA wrestling. I think Merab will be able to take Henry Cejudo down. I don't think he'll get a lot of control time. Henry Cejudo is very athletic, will be able to get up, but Merab just continues to shoot takedowns over and over and over again. And it's a 3-round fight. Merab doesn't have any problem going a hard 5 rounds. So I think he's going to be super aggressive early. I think he's going to be nonstop shooting takedowns, and he doesn't even care if they're successful because he's going to land on the feet. He has good leg kicks. I think he'll get a little bit of control time against the fence, maybe a takedown or two, control Henry Cejudo for 10, 15 seconds, land some shots on the way up, kind of some borderline ground and pound shots. I see Merab winning this fight. I think it's going to be competitive, but I think Merab's clearly going to win. And I don't even know if Henry Cejudo gets a round off of him. Henry Cejudo, when he's moving backwards, his striking isn't that good. And Merab is going to press forward because Merab is going to have no respect for Henry Cejudo's power. Merab has an excellent chin, and Cejudo's not known for chinning guys at all. I mean, the winner against TJ Dillashaw was malnourished, cutting down to 125. So I think Merab Dvalishvili gets it done. His pressure, his pace, his relentlessness, and I think it sets up the striking. We saw it against Piotr Jan. He was able to outstrike Piotr Jan because of the relentless pace and constant shooting in on takedowns and chaining together double legs, single legs, different types of trips and tosses. And then he would just go, as soon as he would get defended, he would look for striking on the feet and land. He was chopping the leg of Piotr Jan. I see him doing the same thing to Henry Cejudo. I see him overwhelming Henry Cejudo. Henry Cejudo is 37 years old, fought one time in basically the last 4 years, lost there, then sat out for another 10 months. And Merab's been active. I know Merab only fought 10 months ago, but before that, it was only a few months before that, 4 or 5 months before that. And he's been active over the last few years, where Henry Cejudo just hasn't. I think Henry really fumbled the bag and ruined his career by sitting out for a long time. So I'm going Merab Dvalishvili. I'm going to say 30-27 decision. And I could even see Merab getting Henry Cejudo out of there. He finds some good shots on the feet when he's mixing in that grappling and has you thinking about it. He landed on Petr Yan, was busting up Petr Yan. So I could even see him landing a big shot, but I just think Merab, even if the grappling was even, Merab's bigger, Merab's stronger. So Merab is going to succeed with his grappling enough to set up the striking. So I have to go Merab Dvalishvili, 30-27 decision. Moving up on the card to the featured fight on the main card, we have Geoff Neal versus Ian Machado Garry. I cannot wait for this fight. This is a fight that's a very tough test for Ian Machado Garry. Geoff Neal, I would say he's incredibly underrated. I mean, he had a great fight with Shavkat Rakhmonov. Shavkat won all the rounds, but Geoff Neal put him in some danger a couple times. Hurt him, I think, in the 3rd round. Before that, beat the brakes off Vicente Luque. Before that, beat Santiago Ponzinibbio. It was a close fight, split decision. Before that, lost to Neil Magny. It was a close fight, but Neil Magny's grappling kind of edged it out. Before that, lost to Wonderboy. But at that point in time, Geoff Neal was kind of having health issues and whatnot. And so that's the point of his career. I feel like he kind of fell off, and I feel like he kind of had a career resurgence over the last 3 fights, even in the Shavkat fight where he missed weight. I still think he had a decent showing. And you have Ian Machado Garry, 13-0, undefeated, slowly coming up the ladder, beat the brakes off of Neil Magny in his last fight. And I know people say, oh, he didn't finish Neil Magny. We've never seen somebody beat Neil Magny up like that. I mean, even look at Mike Malott. I mean, Mike Malott ended up losing. He was out grappling Neil Magny. But Ian Machado Garry showed some decent clinch work in that fight, some decent defensive takedowns in that fight. I mean, Geoff Neal was getting out grappled by Neil Magny. Neil Magny never even got close to taking Ian Garry down. Ian Garry even took Neil Magny down. So while I think this fight's primarily going to be on the feet, I think if there's a grappling advantage and a clinch advantage, I think it's Ian Machado Garry. I think it's in his advantage. He's much younger. He's 26 years old. Geoff Neal's 33 years old, which isn't particularly old. I think this is going to be primarily striking, but Geoff Neal just relies on his boxing. He's really kind of a one-trick pony. He doesn't mix in the kicks a whole lot. I think he had a head kick KO against Mike Perry years ago, but watching his recent fights, Shavkat, Vicente Luque, and the Santiago Ponzinibbio fight, he wasn't really mixing in the kicks a whole lot. He really just relies on that nasty left hand. And he does have knockout power. He does have good hooks. He doesn't throw a whole lot of straight punches. Meanwhile, Ian Machado Garry throws a lot of straight punches, has nasty body kicks, and I just really see him going out there and landing the kicks on Geoff Neal. I think he's going to beat up the body. Geoff Neal's a southpaw. You have Ian Machado Garry, who's orthodox. He can fight out of either stance as well. I see him battering the body of Geoff Neal. I see even, as Geoff Neal tries to close the distance, Ian Machado Garry, he manages distance very well with his footwork. But if you close the distance on him and try to land power shots, he'll clinch up. And then he'll start kneeing in the clinch. And I think, he'll be able to have the advantage in the clinch against Geoff Neal as well. I think he'll be battering the body with knees. And I think Ian Machado Garry, in this fight, I just think he's the cleaner striker. I think he uses straight punches where Geoff Neal kind of uses leaping, hooks and doesn't really use a whole lot of straight punches. So I think even, you look at their reach, Geoff Neal has a slight reach advantage, a 1-inch reach advantage, but I don't think that's really going to matter because Ian Garry's pumping the jab, throwing his straight right, throwing his straight left, where Geoff Neal's kind of using hooks. And also Garry's using his legs, teep kicks to the body, step in knees, nasty body kicks, abuses the legs. I mean, he had Neil Magny dragging his ass all over the canvas in the last fight, and we've never really seen anyone do that to Neil Magny. And I just think Geoff Neal, while he'll land some shots, there'll probably be some moments where it'll be like, oh shit, Ian Machado Garry got touched up with a left hand there. I think Geoff Neal's going to fade a little bit, and I also think that body is going to get abused by Ian Machado Garry. I'm going to go Ian Machado Garry, 2nd round TKO. I think he's going to land the head kick. We've seen him do it against Daniel Rodriguez. In the Shavkat fight, Geoff Neal got caught with a couple head kicks. None of them were super flush. He kind of got the hand up, but, they kind of got through the guard and landed partially on his head. Ian Garry has a nasty head kick. I think he's going to be abusing the body of Geoff Neal, landing that, body kick over and over again. I think he's going to mix in the high kick. I think maybe late 2nd round, Ian Machado Garry goes high, rocks Geoff Neal badly with the head kick, swarms him and finishes him off. So I'm going Ian Machado Garry 2nd round TKO. But even if he doesn't get the finish, I think Garry probably wins 30-27. Even in the fight against Kenan Song where he got clipped up, he recovered well and he came back and got a finish. So I just really don't see where Geoff Neal goes out there and exposes Ian Machado Garry. I just don't see it. Geoff Neal really is just a left hand. I know that sounds crazy and that's a bit of an exaggeration. He does have very good boxing, and I think it is a very good test. But I think as long as Garry can avoid that power and avoid that left hand from Geoff Neal, I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be deep into the body and beating him up, and I think he'll find a kill shot. I think Machado Garry's going to come into this fight with a chip on his shoulder. I think he's going to be looking for a finish. Maybe that cost him. But I think Geoff Neal, you'll see Geoff Neal close the distance. Machado Garry will clinch up with him. And then immediately batter the body with a couple knees, exit, and then go back to, using his distance management and range, and eventually find that head kick KO in the second round. So I'm going Machado Garry, second round KO. Moving up on the card to the co-main event, we have Robert Whittaker versus Paulo Costa. This is actually a tough fight to pick because I know, gut instinct is just to go with Robert Whittaker, but I think Paulo Costa, he's in a must-win scenario. I know a lot of people, it's kind of the popular thing to do to shit on Paulo Costa nowadays. The last fight wasn't his fault. He had nasty staph infection. There was no way he could fight against Khamzat Chimaev. And a lot of the fights that have been announced, I think at one point he was supposed to fight Ikram Aliskerov. At one point he was supposed to fight Robert Whittaker. It was contract negotiations going on with Costa in the UFC. The UFC was announcing fights before Costa signed to put pressure on him with fans. And then the fights weren't happening, and the fans' backlash was going towards Costa. So I think the outrage is a little bit crazy, but Costa has been out for a while. He hasn't fought in a year and a half, and he fought Luke Rockhold in his last fight, and he looked absolute shit in that fight. Against Luke Rockhold, who was coming back after a long layoff. Fight before that, lost to Marvin Vettori. Came in overweight, fought at 205, lost the decision to Marvin Vettori. Fight before that, got completely outclassed by Israel Adesanya. Fight before that, and his last good win was against Yoel Romero. And even that fight, I thought Yoel Romero edged that out, but that was 4.5 years ago. So Paulo Costa doesn't even, I don't even know if he has a win on the current UFC roster, to be quite honest. But Robert Whittaker's coming off the utter destruction loss against Dricus Du Plessis, but that has aged quite well considering Du Plessis is now the middleweight champion. And I think Robert Whittaker, even though before the fight he was saying, I'm taking Du Plessis seriously, I think he was underestimating him. And, Whittaker, the fight before that, outclassed Marvin Vettori. Marvin Vettori couldn't touch him on the feet. So Costa, we know he's going to come in. He's going to look to pressure. He's going to look to use volume and big shots and combinations and rip to the body. But Whittaker has good footwork. He has great blitzes. He'll circle, then blitz with a combination. And it's not like Paulo Costa has like one punch KO power. I know people see the physique. They think he has knockout power. He's more of a volume guy, And when's the last time he's even KO'd someone? He couldn't even finish Luke Rockhold. He hasn't finished someone for almost 6 years. It's been 6 years since Costa got a finish. It was against Uriah Hall. So I don't see him going out there and finishing Robert Whittaker unless Robert Whittaker's completely done. And I do have question marks surrounding Robert Whittaker because he's been talking before, like his kind of head isn't in the game. He lost to Dricus. He was doing okay early, then got taken down, battered on the ground, then the second round just got absolutely melted. But I think Whittaker's going to come back. He's going to take this fight seriously. And I just think he's going to try to pick Costa apart at range, use his little blitzes, just use his blitzes, land some combinations, then get out of range. And I just see him, Robert Whittaker was able to beat up Jarrett Cannonier not that long ago. It was 3 years ago, but Jarrett Cannonier was still very good then and had nasty power. Paulo Costa has those T-Rex arms. Whittaker has an inch and a half reach advantage. They're both roughly the same age. I have to go Whittaker in this fight, but I do question Whittaker's chin. I do question Whittaker's motivation. And I do question, he seems undersized for middleweight. And Paulo Costa's massive for middleweight. But what I think this comes down to is, if this was in the Apex, I'd be more inclined to potentially pick Costa. Costa's been out for a long time. Not that long ago, or not that many fights ago, he's getting outclassed by Marvin Vettori. Meanwhile, Robert Whittaker put on a masterclass against Marvin Vettori. Even Luke Rockhold was going out there landing good shots on Costa in Costa's last fight. So I think Whittaker's going to touch him up on the feet, use his volume, use his blitzing style, land good shots. And I think unless Whittaker gets brutally caught as he rushes in with a counter, and Costa has this unbelievable knockout power, I do wonder now that USADA's gone what Costa's going to look like. But unless Whittaker's chin's completely gone and he gets chin, I see Whittaker winning this fight. I see him winning by decision. I'm going to go Robert Whittaker. I'm going to pick him by decision. I'm going to say maybe drops around. I'm going to say 29-28. But honestly, it wouldn't shock me if he goes out there and does something similar to what he did against Marvin Vettori. But this is a must-win for Paulo Costa. I think this is must-win for him. His UFC resume is just aging horribly at this point. And he's been kind of, the fans have turned against him. I think he has to win this fight. And I think he's going to go out there and look to put on a show. I think he's going to look to put the pressure on Robert Whittaker. And if he can back him against that fence and find some of his combinations, rip to the body, land a hook upstairs, I think he can put Whittaker in trouble because, Whittaker is a little bit chinny and Whittaker is small for the weight class. And I think Paulo Costa has the power advantage, but I think Whittaker will use his footwork. I think he'll be able to get out of range, and I think he'll just kind of, stick and move for the majority of the fight and beat up Paulo Costa and win a 29-28 decision. There's going to be one razor close round that Paulo Costa ekes out because he lands a couple really good shots. Moving up on the card, we have Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria for the featherweight title. This is a weird matchup. I feel like the majority of fans are going Ilia Topuria in this matchup, which I've been a big believer in Ilia Topuria for a long time, long before he was even in the top 15 of the rankings. I thought he was a potential contender in the featherweight division, and now he's made his way there, and he's 14-0. He's undefeated. He's super well-rounded. He's coming off the utter destruction of Josh Emmett in his last fight. Fight before that, ragdolled Bryce Mitchell and submitted him. And then the fight before that, he was up a weight class against Jai Herbert, got a nasty KO there, but got hurt badly in that fight and almost finished. And before that, he brutalized Ryan Hall, who's primarily a jiu-jitsu guy, so that's not really that great of a win. Win over Damon Jackson in his hairline. So Ilia Topuria has been going on this kind of long streak where, or not even long streak. I mean, he's 14-0, undefeated, but he's been beating guys and he's been going on this streak of kind of incremental increases in skill level. And he's so well-rounded. And then you have Volkanovski, who's 35 years old, going on 36. He got KO'd badly by Islam Makhachev in his last fight. Fight before that, he finished Yair Rodriguez, beat him up, hurt him on the feet, took him down, finished him on the ground. And then the fight before that, lost to Islam Makhachev via decision. Some people thought Volkanovski won that fight. I thought Volkanovski clearly lost that fight 4-1 or bare minimum 3-2. And then before that, he's just running over the featherweight division, beating up Max Holloway, absolutely outclassed Max Holloway at UFC 276. But I feel like this is a weird moment in time because Volkanovski is now getting up there in age, coming off a KO loss. He did take that fight on short notice, which I think a lot of people are putting a little bit too much stock in that KO loss, considering he stepped in on short notice against one of the best fighters in the UFC, arguably. I mean, I think he is ranked pound for pound #1 right now, but I believe he's the best fighter in the UFC right now, myself personally. So it's kind of a weird dynamic where you have Topuria's stock going through the roof. Meanwhile, you have Volkanovski getting older, coming off a KO loss. And I feel like everyone's counting Volkanovski out. I know that's an exaggeration, but that's what it feels like right now. And I understand that Topuria is super well-rounded. His boxing is improving. He has nasty power, but he's primarily a grappler. Before he came into the UFC, he was primarily a grappler, jiu-jitsu guy, lots of submissions on his resume. But I think in this fight, while I don't love the quick turnaround for Volkanovski, he got KO'd in late October, and now he's turning around and fighting in February. I wish he would have took 5-6 months off, another 2 months basically, with 2-3 months before he took this fight. I do think, you have to take that into account, but I just think Volkanovski, I think there's levels to this game. I really do believe there's levels to this game. And going back and watching some of Topuria's fight footage against Josh Emmett, while he did brutalize Josh Emmett, he's getting clipped with some shots. You look at the Bryce Mitchell fight. I'm watching that fight. I know he battered Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell was landing some counters, even landed some good right hands as well, and pumping the jab as well. And Topuria kind of has this hunched over stance where I feel like he's always just looking for a kill shot on the feet. And while he has excellent grappling, he doesn't use it that much. I think he's going to go out there and look to KO Alexander Volkanovski. Then you have the fact that he's 14-0. I think he's coming in way overconfident because he's never lost. I think he thinks he's going to go out there and steamroll Volkanovski, especially seeing Volkanovski lose his last fight against Islam Makhachev. So while I think Topuria can get this done, I'm going to go Alexander Volkanovski. I have to go the incumbent featherweight champion who's never lost at featherweight. Never lost at featherweight in the UFC. And, I just think there's levels to this game. And looking at Topuria's performance against Josh Emmett, I think Volkanovski would have got Josh Emmett out of there. Looking at the performance against Bryce Mitchell, I think Volkanovski would have never even got touched by Bryce Mitchell. And I think that Volkanovski is just too good everywhere. I mean, even the grappling of Topuria, let's say Topuria has a BJJ advantage, which he does have a BJJ advantage. Islam Makhachev has amazing BJJ, much bigger, much stronger, much better grappling than Topuria, in my opinion. Took Volkanovski down, took his back, was able to do absolutely nothing with it in the first fight. Just do a little bit of damage with ground and pound. Wasn't able to find a submission. So if Islam's struggling to find a takedown, even in the rematch where Volkanovski took it in short notice, Islam shot on a takedown, got stuffed by Volkanovski. How is Topuria going to initiate offensive wrestling and get a takedown? I don't think he can. So that means it's going to be primarily on the feet. I think Volkanovski's way better on the feet. And I also think Topuria, if he fights at his pace, he can go 5 rounds. He showed that in the Josh Emmett fight. He showed good cardio there. But I don't know if he can fight 5 rounds at Volkanovski's pace. And Volkanovski, amazing fight IQ, amazing leg kicks, amazing shot selection. You know, there'll be, you know, kind of situations where guys will be kind of shelling up against the fence and he'll just pick perfect shots, rip to the body. I think he did it against Jair, rip upstairs right around the guard. He just picks his shots and he has amazing accuracy on the feet. And then on top of that, he can fight out of either stance. He'll switch stances. So even if Topuria starts to chop the legs, Topuria has good leg kicks. Volkanovski can check those leg kicks, but also he can constantly switch stances, and he's really good. He's competent fighting out of both stances. And just watching some of the Volkanovski fight tape, it's incredible. I mean, he's just so good everywhere. He's good in the clinch. He has good offensive wrestling. He cannot be submitted. You know, look what Brian Ortega trying to submit him. He cannot be submitted. So I don't know how Topuria gets it done outside of knockout. Now, maybe Volkanovski's chin's gone. He's 35 years old. He's coming off a KO loss. I don't think his chin's gone. And I think the pace that Volkanovski is going to put on Topuria, I think the striking that Volkanovski is going to put on Topuria, I think Volkanovski is going to outstrike him. I think Topuria will find some shots, but I think Josh Emmett surviving those shots, I think Volkanovski will survive those shots, unless his chin is gone off a 1 KO against Islam Makhachev. So I think Volkanovski will survive those shots. Yair's super dangerous on the feet. And look, Volkanovski saw everything coming. That's another thing about Volkanovski. His vision is incredible. He sees everything before you even throw it, and he's getting out of the way already. And I know he got caught by Islam. Took it on short notice. Islam is a crazy good striker that people don't even give him credit for. I don't see Topuria finding that kill shot. I don't see Topuria winning a decision. So, you know, I think Topuria's best chance is to chin him and find a KO. I think Topuria is overconfident on the feet. He'll just move in, throw big shots. That's why Bryce Mitchell was able to land a couple counters. That's why Josh Emmett was able to land some shots on Topuria as well. And I don't think Topuria can offensively wrestle and take Volkanovski down. And not only that, I think Volkanovski will offensively grapple Ilia Topuria, take him down, beat him up on the ground. I don't think Topuria is that threatening off his back. I see Volkanovski mixing in the grappling. I see Volkanovski mixing in the clinch. I think he's bigger. I think he's stronger. I think he's more versatile on the feet. I think he has more of a diversity of attacks. And I see as the fight goes on, I think Topuria is going to get boxed up. And I think Topuria is going to have some success. I think it's going to be a moderately competitive fight. But I think Volkanovski is going to be clearly winning. And I think the pace that it's going to be set at, Topuria is going to have to shoot. He's going to realize I'm losing on the feet. I got to get to the ground. I got to use my BJJ advantage over Volkanovski. I think he's going to get tired. I think he's going to get battered to the body from Volkanovski while he's trying to shoot. He's going to get kneed to the body. I don't think he's going to be super successful with a lot of takedown attempts. And I think as the fight goes on, I think Topuria is going to get more tired. And I think it's going to be kind of a situation like what happened against Yair Rodriguez, where Yair is starting to slow down. He's starting to be a little bit more open on the feet. I think Volkanovski catches him with a big shot in the 4th round, hurts him badly, swarms him, and finishes him. I mean, that finishing sequence against Yair was nasty. He hurt Yair. Yair backed up against the fence, was shelling up. He was ripping to Yair's body, ripping upstairs. And then Yair brought his guard so high up, then Volkanovski, boom, immediately double leg, took him down, just started smashing him with ground and pound. And I think Volkanovski, in that 4th round, in those championship rounds, I think Volkanovski is really going to start to put the pressure on Ilia Topuria. And I think he's already going to have damaged him on the feet early. And I think Volkanovski finds a TKO in the 4th round against Ilia Topuria and retains his featherweight title. I'm really looking forward to this matchup. I'm going to do a full breakdown on the channel, so make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. I'm going to try to do a couple full breakdown and predictions for a couple of these main card fights, so make sure you subscribe to the channel. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.